So we're now 12 days into President Trump's second term. It's been non-stop chaos. I think it's organized chaos.
No, it's chaos.
It's been something.
No, he has a plan, and he's actually a lot more disciplined this time around. I think it's absolutely organized. I think what he's walked into is chaos, and he's trying to get it straightened out, hence all the executive orders. What do you guys think about executive orders?
I hate
Let's
them.
get going. In all cases, there's never a good idea for an executive order.
Executive orders are really, in my view, meant to be short-term fixes in an emergency situation.
Band-Aids.
Yes, Band-Aids.
Band-Aids.
Because Congress is supposed to do their jobs. And
Congress doing their job. Ha ha.
You mean the people that have been in position for 30 and 40 years?
But the issue is...
Bunch of idiots.
And it's not just Trump, but Biden did a bunch of them. And...
I'm talking to you, Congress. You're a bunch of worthless idiots.
This is retired Nick.
Yeah, right. Like just the past 4 administrations have overused executive orders to the point that they are now. I didn't elect a monarch. I elected a president who has checks and balances.
So I'm going to come at you with a different perspective in that our government is so big that an executive order carries so much authority. Over the years, our government has become so bloated that the executive orders have far-reaching impact beyond what they probably should have had. So whenever an executive order takes place, it unsettles the process. And that's what we've been seeing over the last 12 days.
I don't mind unsettling the process. Is do it within the Constitution. Because my fear and my concern is at what point will an administration come in that I don't disagree that I disagree with, and starts chipping away at the Bill of Rights and chipping away at other constitutional amendments based on executive orders because Congress is too much of a wuss to be able to do something to stop it. And even the Supreme Court becomes politicized to the point where they're following politics and not following what the Constitution actually says.
Arguably, that happened during the last 4 years. The difference between the first 12 days of this administration and the last 4 years of the previous administration has been transparency and communication. Nobody knew what was going on in the previous administration, and the staff was less than straightforward about what they were reporting what was going on.
I'm not disagreeing with it just because Trump did it. I'm disagreeing with the premise of the executive orders as a whole. And most of the executive orders that he signed this past 12 days were overruling the executive orders of the previous administration.
Yes.
So, it really wasn't as many as what everyone thinks it is. It's just executive orders as a whole, because they are being transparent, is now in the news cycle a little bit more than what it was. And thus, it's like, okay, I hated them in 2001 when George W. Bush started doing them.
Oh, it was before that, man.
And I know that, but that's when I first started really getting into it. It's because when I was an adult and started voting. And I hate them just as much now. And it's not a politics thing. It's not a what side of the coin are they on from a political standpoint. I just hate them as a whole.
It boils down to the government has stopped working like it is supposed to be working. It is the people who are career politicians who get in there and don't do their jobs, who have been in there for 30, 40, 50 years, who are sitting there collecting a paycheck, who are
really nice paycheck,
and even after they leave, they continue to do and get a really nice paycheck.
They're mostly paid by freaking donors, man.
Yeah, but so my point is, though, they're continually in there year after year after year. They're not doing their jobs. They're doing stuff on partisan party politics. They're not doing anything bipartisan. They're not getting anything done. 4-year terms after 4-year terms. So unfortunately, all
2
these
and 6 year.
All these I'm talking about presidential presidential terms. I know. I'm talking about presidential terms. That it's this constant 4-year cycle of nothing's getting done. So these presidents, whether we like them or we don't like them, they're constantly having to do these executive crap to get anything done. I'm with you. I think executive orders are just silly, but we're kind of
But
left.
that's the
But do you think the act of an executive order has given Congress permission to be lazy? So, for example,
No,
No,
I think
no.
they take it as a way out.
Well, for example, like if cars today, you've got ABS, traction control, stability control, and all this stuff to keep you, and even semi-autonomous driving, have made us worse drivers.
Yes.
Because what happens?
I ran body shops for 20 years, and let me tell you, cars, even with all the safety features today, continually, from when I started in the industry to when I just recently stopped in the industry,
yesterday.
nothing's changed damage-wise. If anything, damages have progressively gotten worse with all the safety features.
Yeah, so it's made drivers lazy because they're relying on ABS instead of actually trying to figure out what are the road conditions. I mean, I just saw this morning Cooper's Rock was wrecks all over the place. I drove up it this morning. I was like, yeah, this sucks. It's slippery, and slowed down and actually started paying attention to what is the vehicle telling me, so that way I know not to crash it. Where you've got Congress who. We honestly look at Congress and the issues in our government as today that they're brand new today. The only thing that is new today that wasn't there in the foundation of the country is the polarization of politics. Mm-hmm. Because of social media, we have much stronger opinions on both sides that absolutely refuse to agree. But if you go back and review history, and review what happened in the first Congress, the second Congress, the third Congress, the same politics, the same crap that goes on today went on then.
Well, that's the genius of the Constitution, because when one branch decides to exude more power than it should, the other branch naturally steps up. So while we're seeing an influx of executive orders right now, even something as, I find it really interesting, the one that defines sex, that takes gender off the plate, and now the executive order says the U.S. government recognizes that there are only two genders, or two sexes, however it's worded. The really interesting thing is that now that policy, through executive order, applies through every federal agency. That's a policy position.
And you're never going to get Congress to agree on that. That'll never go anywhere in Congress.
Well, it's really interesting to me that we have equal opportunity, things that are on the books. We shouldn't have to.
Why are we executive ordering common sense?
I know. But here's why. Because the church can't reflect that in its own self.
We'll go there. What are you talking about?
So if the church can't show unity and reflect what the kingdom of God is, then how does the world know how to act?
Interestingly, man,
we have. There's amazing churches out there.
But
amazing. Hang on. And there's several out there that are saying abortions, right? God would support that. Jesus would have supported that. They're saying that because of your free will that God created you to have, which is true, that you can go do anything you want. Yes, to an extent, that is true. But that doesn't mean that when you come to the Lord, you get to keep living in your sin. And because the church is even getting divided, they can't reflect what the kingdom should be. So how does the world or the government know how to act?
Before you get into it, Nick,
Nick's
just
like biting at the
bit. The church has played an interesting role in history of politics forever, because the church has substantial influence in the way that politics play out. As a non-government entity, the church is deeply integrated into humanity. Mm-hmm. And we as a church have lost our ability to influence things because we have disabled the power of what the church is through the Spirit to enable to influence things, because we no longer talk about politics and religion. That's a cultural faux pas that we are overcoming.
Did we lose it, or did we give that authority up?
We gave it up because we have said, let's hire these politicians and let them do things because we trust them, and we turned a blind eye to what's been going on. And now our generation, through channels like this, are raising awareness of the fact that, no, we need to be aware of this and talk about this and the influence that the church has on our entire culture. Nick?
I don't think we should be calling those specific denominations religious churches anymore. I just think they're political, left-wing ideology.
You mean the Queen James Bible's not one that you should be
No,
reading?
they're apostates.
There's no way that you can call yourself a church and be like, oh yeah, abortion's okay. Oh yeah, this is okay. There's no way that they should be allowed to call themselves a church any longer in this day and age. I don't care.
I mean, I don't think that they're a church of the true King.
No.
I mean, in their own demented way, they are a church of some sort,
Well,
but
they're
they are
idiots.
not follow. Oh, that's for sure. But they're not following the Bible.
Well, I mean, it emphasizes the unity that we have within the church, and Christ commands us, don't let there be no divisions among you. Yet here we are, and we've talked about not the institution of the church, the body of Christ. We've talked about the institution of the denominations, whether it's Catholic versus not even so much as Protestant, because Protestant has Methodists and Baptists and all that jazz. Our generation is moving toward this idea of non-denominationalism. My kids, as I talk to them, they're like, why are there 7 churches down? Like, they are identifying more with Christ than they are with, I'm a good Baptist, I'm a good Methodist. That's a really good shift culturally for us, because now we're identifying with the deity of Christ rather than the institution of...
I could care less what you are. Just believe in Christ and what the Bible says.
You're... Especially with this, again, I don't know why this executive order has to even be out there.
Yeah. Let's legislate common sense.
But that's the problem, is Congress is not going to.
Well, that's the heart of these executive orders, and as I'm reading through them, it's like, oh, this is just a statement of common sense. We are basically writing the equivalent of the Nicene Creed for what it means to be a human.
Well, would you read the one that you just shared with us that came through about Gaza?
Oh. Yeah, hold on.
Because this one...
So while he's looking that up, speaking of Gaza, one of the executive orders... this was the one that blew my mind.
I don't think it was an executive
was
order,
through
but
the
it was
Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah,
Doge.
it was Doge.
Where he stopped a bunch of hey, let's stop all this money that we're sending out. Let's just stop it. And let's figure out what we're sending out before we send it out.
But there was
$50 million going to Gaza and Palestine for prophylactics.
Do you know what they end up finding out most of those were used for?
What?
They would put, because of the convenience, they would put flammable gases inside of those and use them to help as igniters for bombs.
But why are we sending that?
Because rapists don't need, they don't care. They're not going to slow down to put a condom on.
The other thing you can use them for is you can put them over your gas tank, the fueler door, the fueler hole, so that way when you submerge in the water, it doesn't let water get into the fuel tank.
Yeah, they were using these.
But
it's almost like you're funding terrorism at this point.
Why are we sending $50 million worth of those to Palestine?
I saw something that was really interesting.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Of really classifying liberals versus conservatives. And generally speaking, liberals perceive the world through the perspective of thinking about the other person in a different country. They think about people that are outside of their worldview.
Even when they don't need you to.
That they're focused on developing an ideal for those people over there. Whereas conservatives, generally speaking, are focused on our families and our neighbors and our communities. So there's like a difference in ideals. It's not wrong or right, but it's just a difference of perspective that their emphasis is focused out there rather than focused here.
Now, I don't care whether you're left or right or center or up or down. It's wrong to send $50 million worth of that crap overseas.
Yeah, I don't know what to deal with that.
That was stupid.
When the West Coast is burning and the East Coast is freezing and flooding.
There's poor North Carolinians right now still living in tents, and just 2 weeks ago it was negative 15.
Yeah,
why aren't we sending $50 million to those poor people down there?
No, it should have been done a long time. But before you read that and we jump off this topic, the last thing I want to add is
Los Angeles is Burning by Bad Religion. There's a song about it.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting. About 15 years ago.
What I don't understand why it's such a bad thing to say, okay, we're going to go back to only having 2 genders. That's what we've believed forever, and that's what we're going to go back to. Yeah. It's common sense.
It's in the very beginning of the Bible.
But the other side of that argument is, well, what about our rights? I don't actually understand what rights have been taken away or removed that you're not already a protected under the Constitution, because you have human rights. You have the right to peace and prosperity. Like, I don't understand what rights people are taking away by saying you can't pass on your gender dysphoria.
I'll draw a parallel here. the Supreme Court, U.S. Constitution, reemphasized the sanctity of the role that we have as parents. The government does not have the authority to come in and tell us how to raise our kids. Okay, cool. Then why is it that I only see my children 30% of the time? Why is it that the government has come in and dictated the way that I can parent? So I draw that as a parallel to say that the government theoretically should not be doing what it's done, but it has stripped away through the family court system my ability to parent. Now, how do we deal with that? How is it that we combat that? So even though by the constitutional rights I have the inalienable right to be a parent and raise my children, the state has decided to come in and usurped its authority and said, nope, this is what your custody schedule is because I think it's what's best for you. Oh, and by the way, we want you to pay for your children. I have no control of that. The only way I can fight that is by changing the laws of the state. So to tie that back to everything that we're talking about, the state has too much authority to dictate our lives. And even though theoretically the Constitution gives us the rights to have freedom of choice, the reality is that in certain circumstances, the state comes in and dictates the way that we live our lives.
What's the parallel of how are we oppressing the rights of those people?
The rights of the people is...
If you're a grown adult, you can go do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Leave the kids out of it.
Yes.
But why do you need extra protection and rights? That's the piece I'm not understanding. You know what I mean? That's not already covered in the Constitution.
Because people do what they want to do, and the state defines things. The state has to define things. And when they don't define things, the state takes control.
So big government. I got you.
Yeah, and that's really because nobody has explicitly said through whatever function that parents should have, in a case of divorce, should have 50-50 custody. Well, then the entities that govern the state, the judges, who are all freaking biased, they do what they want to do, and they hide behind the veil of judicial discretion because the law does not explicitly dictate what they must do. So our laws are not written in a way to protect individual rights. Our laws are written in a way to emphasize the benefit of one group over another, and that's what we see through the legislative process. Anyway, I'm so interested about...
Moving on. All right, sorry. Well, we wanted to tie that up. And go ahead, Jared.
That was an interesting transition.
Sorry.
So while we were sitting here right before recording, I got a news feed across that said that President Trump says he will not impose tariffs on Israel if it breaks Gaza or Lebanon ceasefire, which I think is as a believer and as a Christian and somebody that thinks that the promises of Abraham still stand, that's important. And there was a reporter, it doesn't say what news network, says, Mr. President, would you consider imposing tariffs on Israel if violated the ceasefires in Gaza or Lebanon, as you have done with countries like Canada and Mexico? Trump's response, no. I mean, tariffs are a brilliant thing, I tell you. It's one of the best things, but Israel's got to do what they got to do, and they've had some bad people around there, and they have to take care of it.
Oh, they're surrounded by terrible, terrible people. But good on Trump.
Yeah.
Good Trump on that. His unwavering support for Israel has been absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he sent Mike Huckabee to be the ambassador, and Mike Huckabee came out and said, hey, I think Israel belongs to be here. This is the biblically promised land for the country of Israel, and we're 100% supporting it. And everything that he has done has been very pro-Israel. And Netanyahu was very excited that Trump was winning the election.
Well, again, it's a common sense approach to let your ally fight their war the way they see fit, and quit rewarding the terrorists for being terrorists.
It's amazing to me that whoever's opposing Israel is so vehement. Iran is very open about their opposition. Mm-hmm. Like, Israel is wanting to defend itself. Iran is actively wanting to destroy the Zionists. Mm-hmm. And that is the jargon that's put up there. But then, again, going back to the comment I made earlier, the liberal mindset is based off of an ideological mindset, with the base assumption that people are inherently good. And they think, well, if we just provide resources to these people, they're going to change their tune. No, you're just enabling the bully. And that's what that entire region of the world is.
Well,
There's not any honoring of the reality of the situation.
No, they see that as weakness, and to an extent, even
Who sees that as weakness?
The terrorists.
Yes.
Iran and some of the other.
They see, so even to an extent, the ceasefire is a reward for the terrorists. So that's telling them that you get to go in, invade a country, kidnap about 112 hostages, kill, rape, not ever give them back if you don't. But because you did that, we're going to do everything we can to stop them from retaliating to try to get the hostages back. You just rewarded them for murder, rape, and destruction.
So when the ceasefire occurred, there were lots of Palestinians that were celebrating it as a victory and smuggling their weapons back in and trying to get their weapons back in. And all over that region, they were celebrating it as that they had won the conflict. Mm-hmm. And it's the destruction that occurred in Israel on October 7th. It was close to 2,500 people killed. And you look at it at a country that has 75 million people or something like that as total population. Not even that much, 25 million.
Yeah, it's not.
It's
there's
really
not a lot of population.
It's really low. So I mean, the percentage of people that were affected by that attack is insane. Because I think it is. It's around the 20% because it's about the size of New York Metro.
The conflict was instigated by Gaza, Palestinians, and you have a right to defend yourself. And now we have world police coming in and saying, stop the destruction. And the narrative is switched to be like, it was Israel's fault. No, they're freaking stopping the chaos from happening. And they also provided enough leeway for civilians to get out. This is not Israel's problem, and Israel is taking care of it the way they see fit. And
well, again, we're not going to let anybody tell us how to fight our war.
Yeah,
no.
What gives us the moral authority to tell another country how to fight theirs?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that we think that we have the ability to do that. That's
shouldn't.
Political. And let's take it back full circle. There's your freaking jargon word. And talk about what Trump is doing. He's bringing things back home.
Let's take it offline.
I don't want to piggyback on Andy or anything.
He's just going against the last 4 years, previous 4 years' approach.
It's beyond
now
the last 4
elected,
years, dude.
That's their approach, but that's true.
Since 2001, we have taken the international world police perspective.
It's been before that, since World War II.
Well, then don't start with nothing with the dragon, son. Because America's coming.
America.
But honestly though, since we won World War II, we have been policing the world to a point. I mean, that was the whole Vietnam conflict and
Team America, World Police.
Yeah,
I mean, shoot, dude. Look at the global war on terror. We have dudes all over the freaking place.
We do, and I think there's balances to that. So I mean, the world has gotten used to America's. Where America stands as far as our military and our strength and things like that. So now they're reliant on a lot of what we do, but there's instances where we have gone in to try to tell another country how to run their country, and it's worked out very badly for us and them.
Oh, you mean when the CIA has gone and freaking did a regime change, and then that regime came back to freaking oppose us?
Yes.
On a grand scale?
Yep.
Weird.
We kind of did that. We kind of did that during the Cold War a lot.
Kind of.
I mean, that's where Osama bin Laden got kind of born out of was that
weird. Anyway, so
the more you meddle, the more problems you're going to make.
Well, I think that's the beauty of what we've been seeing with these executive orders. The executive orders, even though they're overstepping power and very monarchy-like.
I don't think they're overstepping power. It's his authority that Congress gave him.
But see what happens.
There's one that's questionable that'll go to the Supreme Court.
It's already at the Supreme Court and has stopped. The impact of it stopped, and that's exactly what's happening. Is the executive order is passed, and then legislation is filed against it, or not legislation, but a court order is filed against it, and it gets stopped. So the balance is working out.
No, that's what I was going to say. So there is checks and balances, but there's nothing unconstitutional about executive orders.
To be determined. the way that they're being employed. And arguably, the executive orders have been used as a forcing function. Now, I'll come back to what I said originally. The executive orders govern the executive department, which is freaking huge. FBI, Department of Defense.
Now, we'll see what
Department
gets
of
cut.
Homeland Security, Department of Education, the cabinet. That is the executive department, which is everything that governs the way we live our lives. That's why it's having such a significant impact, is because
It's huge.
it's huge. The federal government is too large and has
Huge.
too much power and authority. Shoot, man, there's a branch of the federal government that's the Federal Child Support Enforcement Agency. Do you want to? I can go off on our rabbit
Please
trail
don't.
about how stupid that is.
Please
The fact, one statement is that they take credit for raising my children. We have raised X amount of children. That's the verbiage in their freaking forward-facing
Well,
documentation.
then hopefully they're on the chopping block, because a lot of these agencies need whittled down.
I sent a message to Doge.
Did you?
I sure
About
did.
them?
I sure
All right,
did.
Let's see what happens. We'll follow that.
We'll circle back to it.
Coming for you, Child Support Enforcement Agency.